Meanwhile, President Biden is claiming that the U.S. and China relations are not being impacted by his comment that Xi Jinping is a dictator. Earlier this week, this even as Beijing reportedly summoned the U.S. ambassador to lodge a diplomatic complaint about the remark. Here's President Biden yesterday.
Did those comments about President Xi undermine or complicate the progress your administration has made in maintaining a relationship with China?
We had an incident that caused some confusion, you might say. But Secretary Blinken had a great trip to China. I expect to be meeting with President Xi sometime in the future, in the near term, and I don't think it's had any real consequence.
Joining us right now, live from Taipei, Taiwan, is AFPI Senior Fellow and Chairman of the China Policy the China Policy Initiative, DC International Advisory CEO, and former Deputy National Security Advisor for Dick Cheney. Stephen Yates is here. Steve, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you, Maria. Great to be with you.
Yeah, I want to get to your trip to Taiwan in a moment. I want to get your feeling about what the sentiment is on the ground. But first, give us your reaction of Biden calling Xi Jinping a dictator, which, of course, we all know he is a dictator. This was the first time the president said anything that could be considered untoward toward the dictator in Beijing. Your reaction?
China has what Biden's been willing to say about other challenges. I mean, he's been very, very blunt about Vladimir Putin. He's been blunt about some other challenges around the world. And he's sort of had kid gloves in talking about the leader of China in ways that people have accused former leaders of the United States of doing. And so we had, in this instance, President Biden unusually blurting out something we all know to be true, but it happened right at the time he's sending his team out to China and around the world for a charm offensive. He's got Secretary Blinken, who's kind of begging for a resumption of meetings. We have Secretary Yellen talking about getting the economic team back on track. So there's this effort at a thaw from the Biden administration. And so far, Xi Jinping and his team aren't having any of it. And having the president call him a dictator to a closed-door group and having it leak around the world gave the Chinese an opportunity to dress down our ambassador and kind of go through their channels to put the United States back in their debt to take responsibility for breaking U.S.-China relations. This game continues, but the facts on the ground just remain as we've always discussed. China being very aggressive and the U.S. not really doing much to push back.
And the president continues just throwing these things out, but not really doing anything with any follow-up. By the way, the president also reportedly talked about sensitive information about the Chinese spy balloon, the spy flight at a California fundraiser this week. Biden told 130 guests that Xi got upset when the U.S. shot down the spy flight because he didn't know it was there, calling it a, quote, great embarrassment for dictators. The New York Times says that officials were surprised by the remarks, but that they, quote, accurately reflected the American government's private assessment. Steve, I mean, to say that Xi Jinping did not know that a spy balloon was traversing the United States, I mean, look, I'm an outsider, but to me, I say, are you for real? I mean, this guy knows everything that's going on and is controlling the country of China and controlling anybody who gets in the way of their path. And you're going to tell me that Xi Jinping did not authorize the spy balloon and did not know about the spy balloon traveling across the United States, sending military secrets back in real time? I mean,
well, there's two things about that that are absolutely insane to me. Number one, I don't know why any president feels the need to talk about any of these kinds of things at a fundraiser when he's out there trying to campaign and get contributions. I mean, there's just no need to go into this story. And number two, that can't possibly be what sentient beings in the intelligence services actually believe. We know that there was transmission of data. We know that there were issues. And we know that if they're doing those things, they wouldn't dare do it without a blessing from above. And so in the greatest surveillance state known to mankind, sadly, the People's Republic of China, it's just not possible for Xi Jinping to be completely unaware of it. This is some goofy story to try to spin a narrative so that they can have a comfortable meeting and Xi Jinping can come to the United States to attend the APEC summit later this year. That's all this can possibly be, is kind of this bizarre theater.
That is exactly right, Steve, and that's what I assumed. Of course, Xi Jinping is ordering this surveillance state, including the spy balloons that can fly throughout America. He is the one ordering all of this and setting the tone for the surveillance. And this is just one more indication that this administration thinks American people are stupid. We're not. We understand what's taking place. But, Steve, I want to get your take on the threat here, because you're in Taiwan this week meeting with political and technology leaders. You say you're getting some truth on the ground about how people outside of the government view China's threats and the reliability of the United States. I know that 90% of advanced semiconductor chips are made in Taiwan. So if, in fact, China does go in and take over Taiwan, that will give the Communist Party the ability to shut the world on and off whenever it wants to. And those advanced semiconductor chips are used in everything from our technology and our house items to the military. So what's the sentiment on the ground?
Well, the sentiment on the ground also captures, I mean, you have it exactly right about where the stakes are, and only make it a little bit more. There's still a tremendous amount of flow of tech products that go through the Taiwan Strait or the other side of Taiwan to feed the world in terms of our smart devices and our modern way of life. So it's not even just the island of Taiwan itself, but the people of Taiwan have lived for a long time with these threats. And the chips are an area of excellence here, but so is cybersecurity and other areas. This is the most attacked geography on the planet per capita. There's a lot that the American private sector and, frankly, government can learn by greater collaboration here. So could our allies in trying to build up the so-called free world's resistance to the malign influences of the Communist Party of China and have clean technology networks and communication networks. It's something that was a really important topic in the Trump administration, a transition that needs to happen, and people here are serious about it. Now, they live with this threat. They see this sort of jibber-jabber that goes back and forth from the president and his administration. They're concerned about the reliability of the United States, and they were put in the box by the United States for a long time with some benefits of protection. But now we sort of have this schizophrenia. Do we want them to take care of themselves, and are they on their own? Or are we here as a real partner to stand with a democratic ally, a technological superpower, in sort of pushing back this greatest threat to global security and the American way of life? So I think the answer is obvious. People here just want to know, are we serious? And we sort of keep Taiwan in this box, I think, against our own interests.
Well, there was a quote from Xi Jinping back in 2020 during one of his speeches when he said, we have to make the world reliant on the Chinese supply chain so that we can turn it off whenever we deem appropriate. So that's the whole point. Get the world reliant on the Chinese supply chain and potentially the Taiwanese supply chain if they, in fact, do go in, so that they can turn it off whenever they'd like. Steve, do you see a real movement in terms of getting supply chains out of China, out of Taiwan, and into America and elsewhere? I mean, the Prime Minister of India was at the White House yesterday. Is that an alternative?
Well, definitely there is movement to diversify out of China. That's what my colleagues talk about with strategic decoupling. It's not something that's an overnight effect, but it's something that must happen. And even here in Taiwan, there's a lot of movement to try to diversify reliance on key supply chains. I think there's a strong case to make to keep Taiwan in the free world secure supply chain, and that they have a way to kind of work together with Japan, India, Southeast Asia, and our other reliable partners in building that safer supply chain and ecosystem. We're just really slow in doing it. And when America doesn't set the tone and the mark, worried about, they don't want to get too far ahead of their skis if America isn't on board.
Steve, you were breaking up there a little for your audio, so we will leave it there. It's great to see you. Safe back home. Thanks very much for joining us live this week from